Hey, 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 hey.
And Star Wars.
Wake me up. Before you go. Oh, there's John. I know that guy. I got a great book by him. Tonight, folks, we've got an interesting lineup, so I hope you are sitting down because we've got some absolutely eyebrow-raising, mind-boggling, bone-chilling,
bone-crunching,
don't look, you might scream, visions of miracles. Actually, some fun factoids, some interesting evidence of life out there. Our guest on our Fast Five group of entertaining people tonight is John Carpenter, or John S. Carpenter.
The main guest.
Yes, main guest.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
not to be confused with the Halloween guy.
That's right. He doesn't write about vampires that I know of, but then again, hey, I don't know what's on the menu next. Be Not Afraid is a book that absolutely covers some of the most amazing miracles, incredible, unbelievable tales. Can I elaborate more without you laughing, John? It starts from the whole premise, does God really exist? And it takes you from there to all these fabulous little evidences all over the world, but, they're not so little to us. So basically it comes from a scientific and observational standpoint, documenting these and talking about the communion wine turning into blood and that sort of thing, and actual hosts. And John Carpenter himself is a psychiatric therapist. He's been doing this for years. He's got his own blog show since 2014. We're going to let him give you a little brief intro about himself so I don't botch this up too terribly by trying to read the ticker tape here, folks. But we really want to welcome him. He's done a lot of hard work on this book, Be Not Afraid, to follow with the footprints of heaven. And a lot of the stories are going to be very entertaining. A lot of them totally Catholic in nature. Some of them haven't really gotten the big man stamp yet, but it's going to be fun to talk about and go over. And this book of his includes 80 photos. So all you people who like to buy like the vampire movies or, buy those little comic books with photos, this has photos, okay?
For you children.
That's right. For you children that like to point and look, oh, look at Barbie's hairdo. Mm-hmm. Oh, look at what is he wearing on his head. Okay? Be not afraid. Welcome, John S. Carpenter.
Hey, thank you, Farah. Thank you, Ken.
Hey, we want you to meet our friends that we hang out with every week. We've got Deb Johnson, who has been with Ken so long she can't remember, and, she still is a spring chicken. Hey, Deb, you there? Did we lose Deb already?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, how are you?
She's muted.
We're great.
She's throwing Una scraps so Una, her big horse in her living room, doesn't go orf, orf. And, of course, we have Mr. Michael Norton, a fabulous counselor, pastor. He just wrote a great book, too. Welcome. Can you say hi? Hey.
Say hello to our audience. Hello to our audience.
Hello, audience.
Hello, studio audience. You're paid to clap.
Golf clap, yeah.
That's right.
All right, let's get ourselves prayed in here. And
that's right. We got to whip it out with St. Michael. Wow.
In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. St. Michael, the archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the malice and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. Be thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the divine powers of God, cast into hell Satan and all the other evil spirits who roam to the world, seeking to ruin the souls. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
I suppose I should add that we dedicate this show to the Blessed Mother, the Mother of Jesus. Consecrate this show, our broadcast, our ministry.
That's right. If she was good enough for him, she's good enough. Way good enough for us.
All right. We're up to the first picture. She's funny tonight, but she's always funny. That way, because I don't have to be.
I just want to poke you tonight. You're just so deserving.
Yes,
let's have fun with John.
All right, John.
Hello.
Let me begin. We have a series of images.
We got a lot of images, like Ken was saying, and we're kind of excited because it's not very often you get to talk about real miracles. People think this is the stuff of the grimoire, the hell books, or how about the Sword and Stone? They think of this kind of stuff as kind of being fantasy and mythological. Tell us a little bit about what got you interested in studying this stuff and how you tracked it down.
Well, I actually became Catholic just in 2010, and the nice thing about the Catholic faith is they document so many of these supernatural and unusual experiences. They keep track of it, they take it seriously, they document it well, and they go after it well. And I've always had an interest in strange things and miraculous things, and as I started studying some of these things, especially the appearances of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and for anyone out there who doesn't think that happens, we'll have to do a show or two or three just on that, because I have tons of information that will blow listeners away on that.
That would be fun.
And you have to remember, as a psychiatric therapist, I know if someone's delusional or psychotic or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is not crazy.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah, anytime you deal with a church, you got to know the difference.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And not just me, but any other professional that looked into those things also said, "Oh, these people are normal, healthy, they're fine." You know? So it's a general, solid consensus on that. But the miracles we're going to talk about tonight are church miracles, things that happened actually in the church, especially during Mass. And most people are familiar with a communion process in the Catholic Church. It's part of the Mass, but in other churches, where I was for most of my life as a Methodist, it was a communion wafer and grape juice. And
oh yes, that's pretty popular.
Yeah. And in the Catholic Church, it's unleavened bread, a little disc of it, and wine, which I really appreciate that.
So does my wife, yeah.
So, but the miracles are called Eucharistic miracles because instead of calling it communion in the Catholic Church, they call it the Eucharist. And basically, it's a moment where heaven touches earth during the Mass. And I like thinking it like that, where, I mean, it's no wonder there's miracles happening during this process if truly heaven is touching earth at that moment.
Yes. And
we are actually part of the great feast that our Lord provides through this communion process. So anyway, there are about 140 plus, that's 140 plus accepted by the Vatican Eucharistic miracles that have happened during these services ever since, going back to almost like 100 AD up to like last year.
Oh my gosh.
So there's plenty of them. In fact, I know of a few that happened at churches and the priest didn't want attention, so he swept it under the rug and basically got rid of it because he didn't want all the attention that would come from that miracle, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But so I thought I'd tell some stories and give you some science on it, because the science is going to blow you away. And I've probably got enough material for 2 hours, and not, but we'll get in.
We'll get as far as we can.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said we're going to get as much in as we can.
Oh, that's right. So tell me what image you've got up first.
We got image number one. Image number one.
He can't see it. Can you tell him what it is?
Oh, you could just name an image, and I'll just put the slide up.
Well, no, I've got them on my computer here in order.
Okay.
So if you got number one up, I know what that is. It shows a priest giving the host to a young man. Is that correct? Is that what you think?
And it looks like it's bleeding.
Right. Okay. So here's the story. Happened in Middelburg, Belgium, in 1374. And a noble and wealthy lady was kind to her servants, but encouraged their spiritual development. So on the first Sunday of Lent, she encouraged them to go to confession and then receive communion. Well, one servant named Jean did so only because he feared being disgraced if he did not go. But he skipped confession and just attended communion. And that's a big no-no, of course.
Yeah.
And he knelt at the railing with the others, but when the priest placed the host on his tongue, it turned to flesh, which he was unable to swallow.
Wow.
Frightened by this, he then made the mistake of biting into it, which most people will go, "Oh, God, why did you do that for?"
Yeah.
But he bit into it, and 3 drops of blood fell from his lips and stained the cloth that was draped over the communion railing. Well, the priest, startled by the bloody flesh in his mouth and the dripping blood, retrieved it and respectfully carried it to the altar and placed it in a golden container.
Wow.
Now, Gene found himself instantly blinded. He went blind and was filled with overwhelming remorse. So, if you're a good Catholic, what do? He confessed his sins at the feet of the priest in front of the whole congregation, and his sight was restored immediately due to his sincerity. He was a changed and devout man after that incident. So
That's
basically
incredible.
that's what happened, and they've still got the cloth, they've preserved it, they saved those things, they put them under glass, and so you can go and see, the actual blood that came out of that host. So that it's not just some fairy tale, it actually happened, and they have preserved any evidence of it. So that's the first little story. Do you have slide 2?
Yes, I do. Let's bring that up. Oh, no, I don't have slide 2. I have slide 3 and 4. If you want
Okay.
to...
Can you jump to 20 real quick?
Okay, 20...
He's pretty good.
20 is the one... Yeah, 20 I don't
Wow.
have either. I don't have 2 and 20. That's what I was mentioning off air.
Oh, you don't have either one of those?
Yeah, that's the same girl. That's the one I said... girl with...
Yeah. But you don't have it?
No, I'd
No, he's got the one with the guy with the bleeding host and the
That's-
silver chalice.
yeah, that's number 19.
Oh, that's
Okay.
number 19?
Well, unfortunately, what I was going to show you was a photo of a recent host turning to flesh and blood on a person's tongue. Actual photo of it. So
Okay.
that's what you're missing. Bad. But anyway, I'll skip over that and go to number 3.
Okay. Here we go.
All right.
We have
and
images 3 and 4. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
And with 3, this is, now sometimes if it didn't bleed, then images would appear on a host. So here you see an actual host.
Wow.
And who does that look like?
Jesus.
Yeah. So here's the story. On April 28th, 2001, just so you know it's recent, and this is in India, and the name is really hard to say, Kiratakunam in India. And in this church of St. Mary, they were doing a novena, a set of prayers, and they exposed the host there, and after a few minutes, the priest said, I saw what appeared to be 3 dots. Then he stopped praying and looked again, and now he saw more than that. He began to see a face. So he he got ready for Mass, and again looked to see what was going on with this host, and now he could see a whole figure, that face that you're looking at there. And he was deeply moved and asked the faithful to kneel and begin praying. He thought to ask the altar server if he noticed anything unusual, and the altar server said, I see the figure of a man. It looks like the face of Jesus. So the guy goes, okay, I guess that's what I'm seeing too. So
Pretty wild.
it went on, and the image got clearer and clearer. It kept developing as time went on, and finally they were just crying and weeping and praying because they could easily see the face of Jesus in this host. And that's unleavened bread. It shouldn't be creating pictures, okay?
Yeah.
No,
And especially developing in front of your eyes like a Polaroid photo, it's not supposed to do that. So you're looking at an actual miracle there.
Yeah, it looks
They,
like there's
of course,
like blood coming down from where the crowning of thorns be, like it's enhanced right there. And that's,
Oh, yeah.
that's something too.
Yeah. So basically, that's what happened there, and I'm just giving you the short version on these so we can cover a lot. Go to slide 4 now.
Okay.
And you see another face.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And this one is in India, again, in the year 2013. So real recent, in the district of Kerala, India. And here's the story on this one. The priest was elevating the host for consecration during the 7 a.m. Mass when he noticed a spot on the large bread he used for the consecration. He says, quote, "It became larger and brighter, and soon a face appeared." The priest said he placed the host to one side and continued Mass using another host that was kept in the tabernacle. I don't think he wanted to use that one. He wanted to see what was going to go on with that face. After the Mass, he called the sacristan and asked him what he saw. He told him he saw the face of Jesus. The priest then placed the host in a monstrance, or a container there, and kept it on the altar for adoration. Hundreds of people saw the shining face of a bearded man with long hair. It was black and white, not in color. And the father said the shining face was still seen when he locked the host inside the tabernacle about 11 a.m. And so they were just, he and all the people there, it said their face just doubled after they saw that image appear. I mean, it just really was exciting. So eventually, make a long story short, more than 10,000 people came by that church to witness the face. And it remained there for 9 days and then went away. So we're lucky we have a photo of it right there. You're looking at it. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Very.
All right, yeah, let's go to slide 5. I'm never short of information, folks. Never short. All right, here's the story. This is from Rimini, Italy in 1227. This involves St. Anthony of Padua. He was debating a heretic, a disbeliever, who was opposed to the sacrament of the Eucharist.
Wow.
St. Anthony had almost led him to the Catholic faith, but after numerous arguments, the heretic declared, "If you, Anthony, produce a miracle and demonstrate to me that communion is truly the body of Christ, I will completely renounce my heresy and immediately convert to the Catholic faith. Let's make a bet. I'll keep one of my beasts, donkeys there, locked up for 3 days to feel the torments of hunger. Then I'll bring it forth in public and show it food. You will stand in front of it with what you maintain is the body of Christ. If the beast, leaving aside its food, hurries to adore its God, I will share the faith of your church," unquote. Well, divinely inspired, St. Anthony accepted the challenge. At the chosen day and hour, the priest and the heretic entered the grand piazza at the appointed time. A huge crowd of curious people gathered as well. Each man had his group of supporters. St. Anthony was followed by Catholics. The heretic, named Bonovillo, was supported by the Albigensians, who were disbelievers. St. Anthony held a monstrance or container in his hands, which had the consecrated host in it, and you can see that in the picture. And let's see here. And he requested the crowd to be silent. Then he turned to the mule and said, "In the name of your Creator, whom I, unworthy as I am, hold in my hands, I order you, come forward immediately and render homage to the Lord with all due respect, so that the heretic and evildoers will understand that all creatures must humble themselves before their Creator, whom priests hold in their hands at the altar." Now, this animal is starved for 3 days. There's food right in front of it. If that were my dog, he'd go right for the food.
Oh, yes.
But
without a doubt,
immediately As you see in the picture, immediately the mule humbly approached the priest, ignoring or refusing the food, bent its legs, bowed down on its knees before the host. It held its pose reverently for a few minutes. The heretic threw himself at St. Anthony's feet, publicly renouncing the error of his ways, and from that day forward he became one of St. Anthony's most zealous colleagues, approved by the Vatican. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool story, huh?
That's amazing. And like you said, the Catholics record everything.
Yeah, St. Anthony's better than just finding stuff where you lose. Because that's what I grew up thinking. And I was like, hey, I lost something. I say a prayer to St. Anthony, Mom would say. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know that much more about him, at least that I can remember. Such as this story. It's the first time I heard it, or at least I didn't remember it. I'm hearing him since I was very young.
It's just amazing, the reactions of animals. Here's another animal story. If you go to slide number 6.
Oh.
And it looks like a man beating his beast there at the barn opening.
Yeah.
And here's the story. It happened in Offida, that's Offida, Italy, in 1280. And the actual miracle occurred in Lanciano, nearby, about 60 miles south. There was a lady named Ricciorella who was very unhappy in her marriage, and she tried everything to win the love of her husband. She desperately listened to some bizarre advice. She was told to take a consecrated host from the church home to her kitchen, heat it over a fire, produce a powder from it, and then sprinkle it on her husband's food or drink it. According to this recipe, he would then grow to love and respect her. As strange as that seemed, she was desperate to try anything. Well, Catholics know you're not supposed to take a host out of the service, so that was not a good idea. She attended Mass and allowed the host to secretly fall from her mouth into the top of her dress. Upon arriving home, she placed it on a tile and then heated it over a fire. But as the sacred host was heated, it did not turn into powder, but rather into a piece of bloody flesh. Horrified, she immediately threw ashes and melted wax onto the tile, but it made no difference. The flesh remained perfectly round within a huge puddle of blood. Desperate to hide the evidence of her sacrilege, she took a linen tablecloth and wrapped it around both the tile and the bloody host. Then she took the bundle outside to the stable and buried it in the garbage pile from the house and the filth from the stalls where they were heaped. So basically, she put it in a dung pile, a compost or dung pile, and had it wrapped up and just put it there. All right? Well, that evening, when her husband, Giacomo, approached the stable with his horse, the animal refused to enter. Despite a severe beating from his master, which is what you see in the picture, the horse stubbornly refused to enter the stable. Finally, the horse relented, but instead of proceeding directly into the stable, it turned sideways, facing the heap of garbage, fell to its knees, as if honoring the garbage pile. Giacomo became violent at this strange sight and accused his wife of putting a spell on the stable that would make animals afraid to enter. But she remained silent. For 7 years, the bloody host remained hidden in that garbage heap, and all the animals who entered or left the stable would turn sideways and bow down on their knees to the pile of garbage for 7 years, every time they came or left the barn. And he was so tormented and fed up with this behavior, but he didn't know what else to do. She felt so guilt-ridden over her sin. Finally, she admitted to a priest from the monastery and could hardly talk through her tears. She says, "I have killed God," she cried. When the priest finally understood what had happened, he forgave her and arranged to retrieve the host from the garbage pile. To their surprise, the bloody host, the tile, and the tablecloth were not contaminated or disintegrated after 7 years. It looked like they had just recently been buried. The miracle was honored, protected, and placed in a special container made of silver, placed high atop the main altar in the sanctuary in Ophidah, where it still is today.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah. See, animals know. They know.
Well, we're Franciscans, so we're all about animals.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, you'll like this next one. Go to number 7.
Is this the one with the fish and the priest kneeling? Oh, that's so pretty.
Yeah. All right. Here's what happened. This is in Alborgorea, Spain, in 1348. Now, a priest was carrying a container with some consecrated hosts inside of it as he traveled to deliver them to some sick people. However, he was crossing a river on the back of his mule when a big rush of water swept him off. And he lost the container, all the hosts spilled out into the river, and he was so upset. I mean, oh my gosh, that's just such a horrible thing to have happen. And they rapidly were carried away down the stream by a strong current toward the mouth of an even bigger river nearby. Well, the priest barely escaped drowning himself and finally made his way to shore. But then the priest heard the voices of some fishermen calling to him.
They're not afraid of getting eaten. You know,
they said, "Come and see." In the place where the waters of the river mixed with those of the sea. The priest came to the spot where the fishermen were and looked at where they were pointing. They all saw 3 fish, each with a white host in its mouth. The fishermen were very perplexed because the 3 discs looked very much like communion hosts. The priest agreed that that is exactly what they were, and he had time to run back to the church and get another holy container. I mean, he's going to do it right.
Yeah.
Well, he's in such a hurry that he did not even stop to wonder whether the fisherman's story could be real. When he returned to the river, he was overjoyed to see that the 3 fish were still there waiting for him. Now they were almost completely out of the water, lifting each host high in the air like little trophies securely in each mouth. And this is where you see the picture now. The priest fell to his knees and held out the chalice. He began praying as he had never prayed before in his whole life. Then one by one, he saw each fish drop a host into the chalice and then slither back and go quickly into the water and disappear. The priest then noticed that a large group of people were gathered around, all witnessing this amazing miracle. Many testimonies were documented and carefully preserved. As one can see those written testimonies today, a small church was built on the site of the miracle, and they even have a large statue of fish holding a host outside of the church. And this is approved by the Vatican.
Where's this country at? This is so cool.
This is in Spain, in Alboraya, Alboraya, in Spain, 1348.
Wow.
And they still have it.
Oh my gosh. You know, my dad joined us tonight. I have to say hi, Dad, because, you know, it's just like he actually showed up and this is getting crazy, and now you're talking about fish when he's here, because he is like he's like this mega angler. He's like Mr. Trout Master. He's like always throwing out the line. It's like, boy, if he could get some of this to get those fish to come in. But it's like, oh my God. And then everybody, oh my gosh, John, everybody loves the story because they love the story about animals. So they're all like hearting. They're like, I see all these flying hearts. So I had to say thank you, everybody, for enjoying these stories. These are really cool stories, John.
Oh, and like I said, there's like 140 of them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well,
image 8.
Ready for another one?
Oh, yeah. Which image are we on, you guys?
8.
Number 8.
Wow.
Number 8. Now we're going to talk about hosts that avoid natural disasters.
Oh, wow.
So in Faverny, France, in 1608, the abbey named Notre Dame de la Blanche had only 6 monks and 2 novices. And at nightfall, when the monks were preparing to retire to bed, they left 2 oil lamps left burning before the host on the altar. So, they got it lit for adoration on the altar. But when the church was open the next morning, it was filled with smoke and flames rising on all sides of the altar. While the flames were being extinguished, the young novice, who was just 15 years old, noticed that the monstrance, which is what holds the host, and the host, as you see in the picture, were suspended in the air and tilted slightly backwards. It raised itself off the altar to avoid the flames. Now, news spread quickly, and everyone came to see this miracle. The church was filled with all kinds of curious people. Many knelt in awe before the floating host. A great number of skeptics came to examine this miracle for themselves, and they saw it. And throughout the rest of the day and into the night, the curious were permitted to move freely about the area and view the suspended monstrous containing the host. Now get a load of this. On Tuesday morning, May 27th, the host continued to float in the air during continuous early morning masses offered by priests from all the surrounding neighborhoods, and finally at 10 a.m., during the Mass offered by Father Aubrey, the hovering monstrous shifted its angle to a vertical position and slowly began to descend to the newly replaced altar. Not until they got a new altar did it come down.
Gosh.
Wow.
The host and monstrous had been suspended in the air for 33 hours.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, you can't miss that.
Yeah.
If they would have had cameras, they would have been taking pictures.
They all came to see it. Yeah, so if anyone doubted, which there were doubters that came to see it, they all saw it, hovering in the air there with no way it could be held up except by angels or the hand of God. I mean, just whatever you want to believe, but it was suspended in midair for 33 hours until the fire was put out and a new altar was placed under it. Then it came down.
Wow.
So, and by the way, the host, despite all those flames and fire and smoke, was totally pure white, untouched.
Oh, my gosh.
All right, it gets better. Go to slide 9.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm telling you.
I mean, all night, hello. I don't think I would have left the church. I would have just been there, whoa.
I bet some people didn't.
I mean, I would have just stayed there forever just to go, okay, when's it going to drop? When's the other shoe going to drop? What's going on?
That's
right, Michael? I wouldn't have left.
That's right.
I would have just been like, wow.
I was hungry for a while yet.
Exactly. Thank you. Mom, can you send me a sandwich? I'm staying right here.
Right?
I'm not going anywhere.
This is just too cool.
I know.
I get it.
Between that and the fish, oh my gosh, I'm in love.
Huh?
Send out for pizza. I'm not leaving.
Exactly. Domino's, deliver. My eyes are not moving.
Right?
Oh,
All right, well, here's another one. This is amazing. Number 9, picture number 9. This happened in Avignon, France in 1433.
Wow.
And what happened was okay, I'll just read it. Louis VIII, the King of France, successfully exterminated the heresy that denied the real presence of Jesus. He vowed to arrange a public demonstration in reparation for the sins which the heretics had committed. Avignon was the city chosen for this, and a grand and holy procession was planned. Exposing the host for adoration became a perpetual process for the next 200 years.
Wow.
Encouraged by an enthusiastic group known as the Grey Penitents. Well, in the year 1433, the rivers surrounding Avignon became swollen from heavy rainfall. On November 29th, the waters had flooded over the boundaries and inundated the whole city, even threatening this chapel, where the sacred host was still exposed for adoration on the altar.
My gosh.
Well, the directors of the chapel were afraid of the rising floodwaters, they might touch or destroy their host. So they got a boat, went in to rescue it, and the waters were 4 feet deep. But as you see in the picture, when they opened the chapel door, they were amazed to see that the deep floodwaters had parted, just like the waters of the Red Sea had parted in the time of Moses. Waters stood 4 feet high on both the left and right sides toward the walls, leaving a central aisle dry and clear from the doorway all the way to the altar. The waters surrounded the altar,
would have been
but did not touch it.
Oh, my gosh.
Two of the witnesses fell on their knees before this miracle.
Oh, my
Others
gosh.
spread the news. And here's a quote. Great was the miracle in this chapel when the water entered it in 1433. On the morning of Monday, the waters began to rise. They pressed into the chapel as high as the altar. Under the altar were placed all paper and parchment books, cloths, towels, reliquaries, none of which was the least damp. Although on the following day, which was Tuesday, the water had not stopped rising.
Oh, my goodness.
So finally, the water went down a few days later, and great crowds entered the chapel to witness for themselves the fact that the altar and all the stuff on the bottom of it on the shelves was completely dry, proving that the 4 feet of water had never touched the altar. I love it.
That's just mind-blowing. Now, the 2-year-old in me would have gone, like, right up to the water. I would have stuck my finger and going, I wonder what's in there. That is, like, amazing.
Poked at it, yeah.
Yeah, I've been like, oh, my gosh, I wonder what it tastes like. You know, it's like,
yeah,
wow.
You know what? That would have been like a Chevy Chase moment where then the water all would have come in the aisle and the whole thing
Oh,
would have
no. Then it would have been my fault. Everything was destroyed. Serious. Oh, my gosh. It's like a Groundhog Day moment.
Mm-hmm.
Go to number 10.
Got 10 up, Ken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a storm or something.
I see hearts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, that's nice. Thank you all for the hearts out there.
We love all the hearts. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, yes. I send a heart out to all the hearts. All right. Tumaco, Colombia, 1906. Not that long ago. 1906.
Wow.
Tumaco, Colombia. The earth shook violently at 10 a.m. for about 10 minutes on the island of Tumaco on January 31st. All of the inhabitants of the village ran to the church. They begged the Father to lead a procession with the Blessed Host. The sea was rising. It had already engulfed part of the beach. A huge wall of water was building up into one gigantic wave.
It's like a tsunami.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, a tsunami from the earthquake. Frightened, Father Gerard consumed the leftover host of the church and put the large one aside for the procession. Calling out to the people, he said, "Let us go, my children. Let us all go toward the beach. May God have mercy on us." Okay, go to the next picture, number 11.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, here we are.
So the tidal wave came rushing toward the beach. He raised the sacred host in the monstrance, which you see in the picture.
Yeah.
His heart filled with faith. He was determined that God would save them. He traced the sign of the cross in the air with the monstrance. As Father Julian stood beside him, they both showed their strong faith in the Lord while facing certain death.
Wow.
Then, without fully realizing what the people had just seen, they heard shouts of, "Miracle! Miracle! Miracle!" The mighty wall of water, which had been rushing forward to wipe the village off the face of the earth, halted and receded. Impossible.
That's,
But
yeah,
the ocean
unheard of.
returned quickly. The ocean returned quickly to its normal level. The inhabitants were overcome with joy and gratitude from having been saved from death by the presence of Jesus in the host and the strong faith of the people. Their prayers had been answered in a miraculous fashion, and news of this miracle spread throughout the world. 1906. World quickly. An invisible force beyond that of nature.
That nobody can explain. Nobody can explain it at all. You know, it just...
It does not happen.
You know, animals can see it. Obviously, you know, it just... This is mind-blowing stuff, people.
So here we have a host that rises above fire, parts the waters of a flood so it doesn't get wet, and stops a tsunami dead in its tracks that's barreling toward the beach and all the people of this village. Impossible, yet it happened. And these are all approved by the Vatican. They're not cute little stories. They're all well documented and well researched and well placed in the history books. But people don't know about these things.
No,
you know,
because it's not common knowledge. It really isn't.
Right. Well, let's jump ahead. Go to number 13. Okay?
Okay.
Jump to number 13.
13. All right, we are there.
I want to make sure before 9 o'clock that we get in some science here.
Oh, we can go over a little bit because we didn't really get started till like about 8:05 or 8:10, so we got time.
Yeah,
as long as you can hang out with us a little bit longer.
Oh, I can stay as long as you want.
Oh, great.
All right. Yeah. So 13, tell me when it's up.
It's up.
Okay. Are you there?
Yes, got it.
Okay. Now, this happened in Lanciano, Italy, and this is what happens when a priest doubts that this is really the body and blood of Jesus. During the Mass in Lanciano, Italy, in 750 A.D., long time ago, 750 A.D., at that time, the priest was having personal difficulty truly believing that the bread and wine could actually be changed into the actual body and blood of Jesus. So during the Mass, he lifted the host at the moment of consecration, and the round white wafer was instantly surrounded by a ring of visible flesh, which is still present, and you see it in the picture. The host has disintegrated since, but the flesh is still there that surrounded the host. So it's still there. The flesh was added around the circumference of the large host, and it's still there. And you can still go see it in Italy. They preserved it. It is still there. And that's 750 A.D. So it's a long time to have preserved it.
No kidding. That's a long time ago.
It did not disintegrate, but the host did. At the same moment, go to the next slide, the consecrated wine in the chalice on the altar formed into 5 jelly-like pellets of blood, human blood.
Oh,
the
my.
astonished priest and the congregation at once begged God to forgive them for their weak faith and recent doubt.
Oh, my God.
Now, this miraculous flesh and blood were carefully enshrined, but without any preservatives or even an airtight container. They should have deteriorated over the centuries, but only the white wafer did, leaving that ring of flesh behind. The 5 pellets of blood had hardened on the outside, but are still fluid today on the inside.
Oh, my God.
Now, let's take a look at the science of this, since we still have it.
Exactly.
In 1971, Professor Eduardo Linoli, an expert in anatomy and pathological histology, received permission to examine the Lanciano substances. The blood was determined to be human blood type AB, which matches the Shroud of Turin and other artifacts that are supposed to have Jesus' blood.
Amazing.
And that was true not only in the blood, but in the flesh sample, too, that it was the same. The blood was shown to be, listen to this, the blood was shown to contain the same minerals, chemicals, and proteins as fresh human blood taken today.
Wow.
Even though this blood was 1,221 years old in 1971. The 5, and get a load of this, this is unbelievable. The 5 unequal portions of blood, those that you're looking at on the screen, those 5 portions of blood weighed the same together as each pellet weighed separately.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, do that.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
No, but it's miraculous.
Incredibly miraculous.
Each of the 5 portions weighed 15.85 grams, and altogether they weighed 15.85 grams.
That doesn't make sense.
Well, it's miraculous.
Totally
now,
miraculous.
There's more. Professor Lanolle discovered that this tissue was actually from the muscle of the heart.
Oh, wow.
This tissue is neither dead nor mummified, but considered to be still living tissue because the commission determined that it responded rapidly to all the clinical reactions distinctive of living beings.
Wow.
These samples from Lanciano remain in the same condition as one would expect to find flesh and blood taken today from a living human being.
Wow.
And it's in 750 A.D. But the chemistry of the science of the experts who studied this said it is fresh as if taken from a living being today.
Amazing.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to slide number 15.
All right. We are there. And 16 is up, too.
It looks like a Petri dish.
Yeah.
It is.
With something growing in it.
Here's the story. Here's the story on this one. Happened in 1996 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, South America. And let's hear the words from Father Pizzet as he describes what happened during the 7 p.m. evening Mass on August 18th, 1996. Quote, "When I just finished distributing Holy Communion to the congregation, a lady came up to me and said she had seen a communion host abandoned in the church. And so he went and retrieved it, and noticed it was kind of in a dusty, dirty area, so he decided not to consume it like you're supposed to do. So he did what the church practices, and that is you put it in a container of water, a bowl of water, and put it inside the locked tabernacle, and then they just kind of decided they'd check on it later and see how soon it would dissolve, because it's supposed to dissolve, and then they dispose of it properly. But what you see here is after a few days, in fact, exactly, let's see here, 8 days later, the priest came down to pray in the chapel and had the lady Emma contact him, and she says, Father, this morning I looked in the tabernacle and noticed something strange. And so he went and he saw the host was becoming red. And he was surprised because it's supposed to dissolve. Wow. And so you're seeing an actual picture of the bleeding host. And so it continued to grow in quantity over the weeks. Go to the next slide, number 16. This is a side view of that bleeding host in the little bowl.
Oh my gosh, it's like growing.
And then, after you've got a good look at that, go to 17, the next picture. And now you'll see this is even, let's see, how much longer was it? Oh, a few weeks later. A few weeks later, you can see, this is the air view now. Now you can see is just so much more blood and starting to have tissue in there, and all sorts of things are going on, and yet this is locked up where no one can get to it, okay? And now go to number 18, and you'll get another side view of that particular substance.
Wow.
Now, let's talk about, and guess who the Archbishop was in Argentina at this time?
Francis. It wasn't Francis.
Pope Francis.
Yeah.
So he knows about this because he gave the orders for scientific study of it. So our own Pope Francis was well involved in this.
Goodness
well,
gracious.
Here's what they found out. The sample of the bloody material was carefully extracted and sealed for forensic analysis in a blind study, which means that the laboratories have no idea where it came from or what the story is. They just handed it and said, what do we have here? Tell us what you see. Well, they said, this is human blood. But they were very puzzled because the human DNA would not yield a genetic profile. That's impossible. All DNA has a genetic profile.
True.
But not this one. And in fact, I'll just tell you right now, not any of the hosts that have been studied that were bleeding have ever yielded DNA with a genetic profile. So
no telomeres?
Stop and think for a minute. DNA comes from everybody that came before you.
Yeah.
If you are the creator or first in line, there won't be any genetic profile from anyone before you.
No, that's true.
Oh,
That's good you explain that.
That
details the significance.
Amazing. And not just this one sample, but many.
Wow.
Let's go to the next. Oh, wait a minute. Got one more bit of information here on that.
Sure.
Okay. They went to another scientist, Dr. Zugibe, who I think also studied the Strataturin, and they had some tissue in that sample, okay? So he says this looks to be of human origin. It is flesh, and I can see white blood cells. It's definitely heart tissue from the left ventricle wall, not too far from the valvula area. It's part of the heart muscle that makes the heart beat. The left ventricle pumps blood to all parts of the body. This heart muscle has lost its striation, and there is the presence of intact white blood cells. The heart muscle is inflamed. There has been recent injury, like a beating, where someone has been beaten severely around the chest. The white blood cells indicate injury and inflammation. Well, there are a lot of them, and they're all intact. Now, get a load of this sentence. White blood cells can only exist if they are fed by a living body. The heart was alive at the moment this sample was collected.
Oh, my goodness.
What did we just say about the Lanciano 750 AD sample? That it was like it was alive, living tissue taken that day, and it was heart tissue. Here again, in this Eucharistic miracle, where the bleeding host, now they have white blood cells, evidence of someone being beaten about the chest, and it's heart tissue, and the heart was alive at the moment the sample was collected. The white blood cells, he found, could only last a few minutes without the nourishment from a living body, and this sample had been stored for 3 years before he examined it.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, wow. Wow. All right, let's go to slide number 19. Folks, we could go a long time, but I've got just enough for you tonight.
Wow.
Okay, we're good.
All right, number 19 shows a Mexican miracle in Tixtla, that's Tixtla, Tixtla, Mexico, in the year 2006. You can see the priest holding up a host that started bleeding. And what was significant about this, I'll just jump to the science, because we can understand it started bleeding. And here's what they found. Number 1, the reddish substance was human blood, with hemoglobin and DNA of human origin. Yet, no genetic profile could be found in the DNA. Number 2, 2 studies conducted by eminent forensic experts determined that the blood originated from the inside of the host and then bled to the surface, just like blood in a wound would come from inside and then go to the outside, which means nobody could have put the stuff on the surface. It came bleeding from the inside of the host.
That's incredible.
Number 3, the blood type is AB.
Again?
Matching the samples. Yes, AB, again, which is very common among Middle Eastern people. Interesting. And then number 4, a microscopic analysis reveals that the blood nearest the surface has been dried since 2006 when it happened, but the innermost layers of the host still have fresh blood as much as 4 years later. Again.
That's
number 5,
you guys.
Wow.
They also found intact white blood cells, red blood cells, and other elements of blood. The tissue appears lacerated exactly as it would in living tissue. Living tissue. A further study of the presence of protein structures in the blood shows that it was a process typical of blood and not of anything fake or, it's not like ketchup or anything like that. Okay. And finally, these studies in Mexico revealed that the tissue corresponds to the muscle of the heart. Again, the muscle of the heart. And the heart tissue was alive when the sample was taken.
Wow.
But the tissue was not examined until 3 months had passed, and yet it was living heart muscle tissue. I love this stuff.
That's just amazing.
It almost brings to light the Sacred Heart devotion. It's like, why the Sacred Heart? People say, why the heart? And it kind of connects.
Well, you heard the heart of Jesus is in the Eucharist.
Yeah, literally.
It truly is.
Yeah.
It truly is. The Sacred Heart. Okay, now you don't have number 20, correct?
Yes, I don't have number 20, but I got 21 and 22 up, ready to go.
Okay. Well, 21 through 23 all go together. Let's start with 21. This girl that I was going to show you, her name is Julia Kim in South Korea. She had numerous things happen. She had 13 hosts turn to flesh and blood on her tongue. I had 2 pictures that we might have been able to see but didn't, where it just shows. It shows on her tongue, the round host turning to flesh and blood. One of those times that happened, she was in front of Pope John Paul II at the Vatican in a private ceremony in his own chapel there at the Vatican, because he was kind of interested in what was going on with her, and sure enough, God wanted to do it right in front of him. So right in front of him, boom, this host turned to bloody flesh, and it was pulsating and swelling and beating like with a pulse on her tongue. What you're seeing in the picture now, it looks like blood splatters on a bedspread. That's exactly what it is. And she would have, back in Korea, blood fall out of thin air in the chapel, in her home, outside. And so they set up cameras in her bedroom and to run, like security cameras constantly. And when the blood would come, there would be nobody in the room. In fact, they could be in the room and they could hear it hit the bed, and they'd look up and there's nothing there, and the cameras would show that there's nobody doing anything. So that blood fell out of thin air. Now it gets better. Go to the next slide, number 22. And that's kind of bloody tissue, like bloody flesh, that also fell out of thin air. That happened numerous times, indoors, outdoors, on rocks. And go ahead to slide number 23. They had a Stations of the Cross in a wooded area nearby, and they found a bunch of blood dripping in the area. So they took little black plastic rings, and everywhere they found a blood drop or a piece of flesh, I know it sounds gross, but you just have to bear with me here. And this is not a scary movie, so don't have nightmares tonight. Think of it as the life and love of Jesus falling on us, okay? The life is his flesh, and the love is his blood. So think of his life and love falling on us with great graces. So here they put a ring around every blood thing they could find, and look, you see there in the picture, it forms a trail that goes from one Station of the Cross to the next one at the point of when, the appropriate point where he would have been carrying the cross and bleeding, So amazing. Now it gets even better. They took samples from the host that was on her tongue, the blood on the bedspread, the bloody tissue that fell out of thin air, those blood things on the pavement out there, and about, they had 8 samples total. And guess what they found out? It wasn't her blood, which you might think, oh, she's faking it somehow. No, it was the blood of a man, and all the samples, no matter where they happened or how they took place, even inside her mouth to the pavement outside, was determined to be the same man's blood in all 8 samples, no matter where and when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that.
Was this did this have that no genetic profile thing like the other ones?
Yep.
And
just
the interesting thing about this one too is that in other cases the host and the tongue turned to flesh when the person was a sinner. Why would is there an inconsistency there that this time it actually did it for someone who wasn't a sinner and it materialized in the air? They have a picture of it on a table instead of on the cloth or in a chalice, which kind of says that this isn't. And drops are appearing in the ground and on bed sheets instead of on the altar. This one seems very different. That's all I'm adding. I don't know if there was other information.
The area was a holy area. It was the area where all the stations of the cross were. And the bedspread was where she slept, which she was considered visionary. She had many visits from Blessed Mary. I mean, she had tons of messages and many things. I mean, they've written several whole books. There's so many things that went on with her. This is just a small part of it, actually. And the tissues fell either on her bed or in the holy areas or in the church. So one time they had 7 hosts fall out of thin air and land on the altar. I mean, that'll wake you up.
No kidding.
Yeah. And in front of everybody, in front of priests and archbishops and whoever, the visiting dignitaries, it didn't matter. It would happen in front of all these people. And in my book, again, Be Not Afraid to Follow the Footprints from Heaven, I have a number of these, and the picture of it on her tongue, because we talked about color photos. I've got it in there. And it covers a lot of this that we're talking about. So, anyway, we have a little bit more if you got more time. So,
yeah,
5 minutes sounds about right. That might be enough to cover it.
I can do it.
All right. Everybody's just like, wow. Like Jennifer Evans, nothing gross at all. Dawn's like, amen. Jennifer's like, wow. David Landry, I just got here. Deb is like, oh my gosh. And everybody's just like, oh my goodness.
Oh, I'm telling you, folks. I mean, I take this very seriously. This is important stuff that people need to know, and that's why I've been researching it for 5-6 years now. Just digging, getting all the best scientific stuff and things that are out there that I'm trying to pull together and, and collect them and put them all together. And I've even got a second book in the works that's going to go into more depth on all this. So, certainly we have so much to talk about. Let me cover some living statues real quick. And we'll go to slide number 24. This is also considered a Eucharistic miracle. And this happened in Regensburg, Germany in 1257. Regensburg, Germany, 1257. And basically, the priest was at the moment of consecration in the chapel and had a large crowd there with him. And he hesitated. He doubted the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. He had his doubts that this was really his true body and blood. It's just symbolic. He didn't think it was really there. Well, because he delayed, raising the chalice for consecration, and in those days they faced the altar, as you see in the picture.
Yeah.
He then heard a slight noise coming from the altar, and all at once the body of Jesus on the large crucifix seemed to come alive. One of the hands of Jesus detached itself from the cross, stretched forward, took the cup, the chalice, from the hands of the priest, and raised it. It's like, if you're not going to do this, I'll do it.
Oh, my gosh.
Well,
what year did this happen in?
Everyone in the church was shocked. I mean, they were just stunned. I mean, I would be too.
I think I'd
The priest
follow.
backed away. The priest backed away and gazed at the miracle. He fell to his knees and fervently repented of his doubts. It was only then that Jesus handed the cup back to him. Everybody was amazed, and great crowds came to the church to honor that miraculous crucifix for years. And guess what? Still there, and approved by the Vatican in Regensburg, Germany,
Oh my
1257.
gosh.
I love it.
Whoa.
Well,
that's a shocker.
Go to
That's a shocker.
Yeah, I'd be a little unnerved to see that happen, but hey, it just shows you don't doubt this. So, go to slide number 25. This is beautiful black crucifix.
Mm-hmm.
However, this crucifix is made of white marble.
Really?
Oh, yeah, you're gonna say it looks black to me.
It looks like burnt. Crispy
this
critter.
is Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
Mexico City in 1602. And a beautiful crucifix made of white marble was in a Dominican church, and it's next door to the cathedral and used often by seminarians. The archbishop celebrated Mass there on a regular basis. It became his customary practice to kiss the feet of the crucified Lord on the cross before beginning the Mass. Not everyone had been happy with the thousands of conversions happening since Guadalupe, and which inspired 9 million people to convert.
Yeah.
And not everybody was happy with that. So one guy decided, I'm going to kill this bishop. I'm going to kill him. And so he decided he's going to put poison on the feet of the statue.
Oh, no.
Because, the bishop kissed it, every morning before Mass.
Oh.
So he puts the poison on, and the bishop goes to kiss the feet of Jesus, and the feet raise up in the air where the bishop can't touch them. And he backs up like, oh my gosh.
Oh.
And then they see the white marble start to turn to black, as if absorbing the poison instead of letting the bishop suffer. Jesus took on the suffering, and the white marble turned black. And you're looking at the white marble statue that absorbed the poison in 1602 and saved the bishop's life by raising its feet up in the air away from the bishop.
Oh, boy, that bishop's lucky. That bishop is gracefully blessed.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh.
No
Right.
kidding. That would have been a big burden to take downstairs.
Yep. You still got some time?
Still got a few minutes, Ken? How are we doing?
We can go a couple
One more?
minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's stretch it out.
This is
One
a
more.
long one, which I'll do very quick. Go to slide 26.
Okay.
And you see this beautiful depiction of Jesus suffering on the cross. I know that sounds a bit ironic to say a beautiful depiction, but it's well done. It's a beautiful 6-foot crucifix in Limpias, northern Spain. It was made in the 1800s. It had some miraculous history, which I won't really go into, but it was moved to this little church. And the church was dying out. There were maybe 6 to 10 people showing up, and the priest thought about closing the church. But he decided to have one last blast and have a big retreat with some famous evangelists and try to stir up some excitement. Well, it filled the church, and a lot of people were there. But when it filled the church, they all started seeing the crucifix moving.
Oh, wow.
Jesus moved his head left, then right, looked up, looked down, he started sweating. So much so, they gave the priest a ladder and said, get up there and check that out.
Oh, my
So
gosh.
he climbs the ladder and feels the crucifix, and his hands are just coated with sweat. That it wasn't any illusion. He really had sweat all over his hands.
Wow.
And to make a very long story short, this went on for 3 years in that church. This is one of those that was very well hidden. I got a book with the original testimonies and affidavits from 1919 through 1921 when this happened.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
it's unbelievable. People saw him breathing. They saw him turn blue and gasp and take his last breath of life.
Wow.
If you were a sinner, you saw him glaring at you.
Uh-oh.
Oops.
Sounds like my old
And-
priest in Chelsea when he saw me coming in with Holly. Me and
And
Holly
if
be
you
like
were in-
ducking, going,
If
you
you're in
don't see
good
us.
standing, if you're in good standing, you saw waves of wonderful, passionate love, making you never want to leave. And people did; they stayed all night, and they just couldn't leave the wonderful love that they felt coming from his face and everything. And he would look right at people, and they said it would just give him chills. But and one guy was really nervous, so he started walking around the church to get away from his gaze, and the eyes of Jesus followed him wherever he went, and turned his head toward him. And even at one point, 2 dramatic things happened. He actually shook on the cross so much he banged his head on the back of the cross, and it shuddered the whole wall, and everybody heard his head hit the cross. It banged that hard. And an atheist came in the church and said, oh, this is a bunch of crap, bunch of baloney. They had to carry him out on a stretcher because he fainted and said he saw Jesus getting down off the cross and coming at him. So, interesting thing about this, they estimate as many as 80,000 people saw this over 3 years, and they have collected 8,000 testimonies and over 6,000 under sworn oath, all in the records there in this little church in Limpias, northern Spain. Why don't we hear about this stuff? I actually got it off of EWTN. My wife, Ruthie, saw it and says, you better check that one out. And when I did, of course, I go way into it when I check it out. I got the original book and all the original testimonies and all the quotes from the people who were seeing things. And, oh, my goodness. I could do 2 hours just on that one.
Yeah, I bet.
So,
because it's
anyway, folks, that is a brief touch of the kinds of things I've been digging into. And both of the books that I'm working on, I mean, the one's out and the other one I'm working on, they're just filled with this stuff. And by the way, I got church approval the end of November for the first book, Be Not Afraid to Follow the Footprints from Heaven. And it is on Amazon. If you like ebooks, it's an ebook through Kindle and all those sources. And so, gosh, check it out, folks. I mean, because this stuff, it's not about me. I just put it all together. This is about stuff that we all need to know about. And if you're amazed by the kinds of things that I've presented tonight, then the book will just blow you away. So,
on the thing. All right, get back to your coffin, your little mini coffin. Uncle Fester put you in.
I'll put you somewhere.
Oh, you had to see the video to get that one there. We'll call you brother. Instead of calling you John Carpenter, because everybody always assumes Brother Carpenter. I appreciate it.
Don't go nowhere. We got a drawing.
We have a drawing coming up, and we just have a short commercial break. But there's a
Did you tell them about John's website where they can find him?
Yeah, there's a radio
it's
show and a website.
www.divineministries.info/. No,
Divine Mysteries.
Mysteries and Miracles.
Okay, Divine Mysteries.
Yes, it's got all John's blogs, information about the book, information about these miracles, and so many more. Just incredible. I mean, and John blogs here regularly, posts stuff. There's articles, store, all kinds of great stuff. This is amazing, John. We're going to have you back because we can't possibly pack you in. Not even in 2 hours, I don't think we can get you in.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you need.
Are you kidding me? This is great stuff. Thank you so much for being such a blessing to us. People were just like, they were blown away tonight. This is just some of the most amazing.
That's doing it, not me.
Well, of course it is, but it's nice that you kind of like, what you did is you kind of like went into the lake and you gathered all the pebbles and you're letting us look at them, you know?
Yeah, the details of them are important, and you did more than just tell the short version.
That's a great thing about
all of it.
Yeah, you got a lot of research
to give
there.
the full effect. Thank you very much. Have a good night, good week. God bless. Hey, you guys out there in TV land, Facebook land, don't you go anywhere. We're going to be right back.
And don't get frustrated. Facebook does its Facebook thing as often as it can, but, we've got your swag bag, okay? Don't forget. We've got your little swag bag. So, drawings, and, of course, we've got our commentary from the Peanut Gallery, Deb and Mike, after the break. So don't go anywhere.